adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, brought to you by Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast, because what other choice do you have? I'm your host, Conor O'Brien, and joining me as always is my co-host, Mr. Martin O'Dwyer.
I was going, Connor. I actually really like that one. Sword Burst is also really good.
Yeah. I do good, man. Do good now. In case you guys can't guess by that intro, because who uses Eldritch Blast? We're talking about Warlocks today.
Yes.
Before we get into the subject proper, how are you, buddy? Any news? Any goings on with D&D?
Yes, we did our. I think did we talk about this last week or the week last recording session? But my guys fought the final boss of this arc and defeated them. They all
This is the kind of cyber giant.
the Techno Vikings, as my players have called them.
Techno Vikings.
Yeah. These like cyborg storm giants, and their leader, he's basically looked like RoboCop, or like the only flesh left on him was like half of the side of his face. Everything else was completely like steel, and what did I call it? I can't remember. I really should remember the name of the metal alloy. That it's like this Fire Realm metal alloy that I made up. Called
that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's something because the way they technologically advanced was by harvesting like crashed Micflayers ships and using that stuff. But yeah, they beat him, and it was a really cool fight. I literally put my whole party into red health for the very first time. Like everyone,
get that fear into him.
my blood hunter worked out. He took 180 points of damage that fight. Actually, no, I didn't get my rogue into red health because like storm giants, all their big damaging AOE stuff are dexterity saving throws, and he has evasion. So he was like, he only got hurt by like the actual physical attacks, and 2 ogre stake launchers or whatever they're called.
Ballista throwers or javelin throwers or something like that.
Bolt throwers.
That's
I had them, and I reskinned them as like rail gunners and stuff. And so they did a good bit of damage. I really tried to kill my sorcerer. I really did. I didn't want to. The monsters just really wanted to. So like she was on like 9 health, and the boss was standing in front of her, and then there was one guy left because Mandry or Drew, he was like, right, my job is to destroy these two so he can just focus everything on that person. On the big bad, which is a really, really good tactic to take and stuff like that. Just like one person just goes and wipes out all the other guys, so then like everyone else can focus down. And he killed one, and then there was one alive, and like he had taken very little damage because Mandry just all focused on one. He's going, I'm going to kill you, and then I'm going to kill you next, and then we'll kill him together. So he'd taken very little damage. So like there were like 3 rounds where like she had like 9 health. And I rolled to they're bolt throwers, so I said they were like a railgun, like it's like this giant chrome spike like infused with electrical energy. And so like 3 times I shot it at her, 3 times I missed, like directly, and it does like 3d10 damage plus I think it was,
their ballista level to damage.
It was like 3d10 plus 6 damage each time, and I was like, there is like I literally the only way she can only get knocked unconscious by this is if I roll minimum damage on everything, because it's 3d10 plus 6, so 3 1s plus 6 9. She's like, even if I roll minimum,
the only way,
she's done. And then after his round was the big bad, so I was like, if she got KO'd, the big bad, like he was like, I'm here to kill you, and specifically you. Like he was ignoring the rest of the party members and stuff. So he would have just like flipped his big great axe up, bang bang.
For you to hit her with one of those bolt throwers and get 3 1s is a 1 in 1,000 chance.
Yeah. No, she was if any one of those hits, she was going to die, because what would have happened was, actually what would have happened, because legendary actions would have been, she would have went down when that guy shot her, that guy would have ended his turn, and then Donner Sign would have went legendary action, smash, 2 death saves. And then it was his turn after, and dead. Oof, that would have been rough. But she got very, very lucky, and it was a super awesome boss battle. And then
you mentioned that your blood hunter, who should mention, I think we mentioned before already, he is a lycanthrope blood hunter.
Yes, he's a lycan.
So he took 108 points of damage.
180.
80.
Yes.
And is that including or is that already reduced for? So he took more than that, but most of it was reduced for like bludgeoning and piercing and slashing and stuff.
Bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. He also was really, really smart, and ages ago just bought a lightning resistance potion because they knew they were going to fight storm giants, and just hung on to it for the entire arc until literally, like he literally went, right, bonus action, hybrid form, action, I'm going to drink this potion.
Nice.
And just I was like, I cannot fault you, mate. That's perfect. Like, so
No,
yeah.
that's the kind of play you want though as well. Like.
And he's got like 16 decks as well. So like when he was getting lightning bolts chucked at him, he was quite often making the save. So he was even quartering the damage. But he's a really really strong tank, and he's got like fire resistant armor as well. So he's just he's a handful, but I got him to half health for the first time. For the first time, I got him to half health. I was delighted. But yeah, it's been really fun. I gave him this whole because now at the end of that fight, my sorcerer, instead of like finding a vestige, I had it be a thing where like it's a title that's passed on from her draconic ancestor to her. And it basically like manifests this thing I've called the Storm Monarch mantle, and because like my two spellcasters got their vestiges pre-awakened, they got the awakened forms because they were like directly passed on to them from godly beings or beings of immense power, whereas my other two defeated people and took them off them. But they had a big avatar thing where like each of the elements or forces that the vestiges embodied, like they basically went full avatar mode and controlled all of it. So like because my blood hunter has a sword forged from a meteor that fell during a lunar eclipse, and it's like a sacred weapon of the moon god Galark. A blood moon rose and like blocked out the sun in the middle of the day, and then like my sorcerer has the storm monarch, so like just thunderclouds came out everywhere and lightning started crashing down around. Because Mandrai is the flame emperor, the clouds then ignited. And then because Arandir's vestige is called Tidebinder, it's related to the sea god, he just full on controlled the seas and started calling up like giant spikes of waves, avatar style, to like, and they did this to like destroy the giant fleet that was about to go out and like scourge the world. So they just went full avatar mode and like destroyed it. My blood hunter as well, I was like, what do you want? So like I said, all this stuff happened, like what do you want to do? Like give him full like just go crazy, do whatever you want, because like you're basically fully empowered as an avatar of a god right now. And my whole party were kind of quiet for a second because like when you're given the opportunity to do anything, you're like, what can I do?
Too much choice, and you're like, I can't think right now. Yeah.
So my blood hunter was the first to attack. He was like, I'm just going to take out my sword and go like that, and I was like, you slash, and at the end point of your slash, another giant like radiant slash comes out, and you like cut the lead's airship in half, just like anime style, just sliced it in half, and he went, ha 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 ha, and then everyone else went, right, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. It was sick. It was really fun, and it was a thing I had planned ages ago. And I was like, I have these 4 or 5 things, like key visuals I'm going to do, like the blood moon, the clouds lighting on fire, like storm clouds just covering the entire sky, and like just the seas like reaching from like literally like sea level all the way up through the clouds to where these sky castles are, and like pulling ships out of the sky. And I just like everything else the party gets to decide, because this is like their reward for going through 9 castles with me. It was just really kind of fun to just let them just let loose with it and go full like Siege of the Northern Water Tribe kind of with it. It was really really fun. And yeah, after that now they've met up with, as I was saying before, you kind of cut out, this a guy he's the Scrivatoro, who's like a member of this like ancient group called the Scrivatori, who like studied everything to do with like the Divine War and the basically the Vestiges of Divergence and all that kind of stuff. And they've met him, and they had like they don't really trust him yet, so they had just like a chat with him, because he was kind of, he did like, they met him in a public place, so he kind of made like vague allusions to who he was. And then I just saw one of my players go like, oh, and just start whispering to another player, and I was like, yes. But yeah, so the next session, because this will come out after, no, it won't, it'll come out before it. So the next session, he wants to do like a test with them, because he recognizes each of the things they have. So yeah, it's just a lot of kind of setting up for the end game now, because I am intending to have this done by the end of the year. And it was session 97, so session 100 is coming up real fast.
We're like weirdly so like close in where we both are.
To be fair, I started way before.
Did you?
Yeah, I started this campaign in like 2017.
Oh, okay, fair enough. So, yeah,
we had a lot of big breaks though.
Yeah, we did a couple of breaks in our one as well that I'm running. But I mean, we did 99 this, or was it 98?
I thought you said it was 89 at the session.
No, it was definitely in the 90s.
That I did think it was weird. Damn it, I don't have
Maybe
my
I
notebook
misspoke
here.
now, but we're definitely in
No,
the.
we're almost up at 100 because I went. You said it was 89, then I went and looked back the previous session. I had 97 written down. So.
We are on. Our last session was 99.
Ooh, session
So next session
100.
is session 100. Yeah.
Oh, fighting the bog
We
witch.
also your party just leveled to 14.
Yes, they did. They did.
And you guys literally leveled to 14 in our last session as well.
Yeah, I thought I had leveled them to 14 already, and then I was out for my birthday with a few of them. And I was chatting to them. I was like, "Yeah, you're level 14 now, don't you?" And like, look, third up sorcerer. I was like, "Don't you have your wings?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, oops!" And they just started laughing. Like, so we're leveling up next session, yeah. And I was like, "Maybe, yeah, maybe." Oh man, glasses are.
It's
shit.
Yeah, that's mad that we're gonna and I'm in a similar boat where I'm also planning on finishing this before the year is out as well. I was thinking about it recently, or just like yesterday or today, about what I have in store for like the next few weeks, and it's come to mind it's come to mind that I'm like, oh, I have like a very busy month slash month and a half coming up because I'm getting married,
Yeah.
and then I'm going on a 2-week holiday the week after, and I'm basically like just going to be AWOL for like a month and a half. So I'm like, oh, we're going to be missing a lot of sessions there, so I will need to make those up. I'm trying to pick up the pace of the campaign significantly though. Now I feel like, for the most part, I feel like all of the seeds of any particular arc have been sown, and to some degree, kind of followed, and people have kind of unearthed certain parts of it. But pretty much everything that's out there now is what's out there, and I'm just looking to like get resolutions to all of those now. Okay, so there's this thing I did this campaign that I didn't do last campaign, and I actually think that in an attempt to make the game more not true sandboxy, but like more in the direction of a sandbox game, and it actually was kind of detrimental maybe to the pacing of the campaign. So in campaign 1, you guys would be whatever level in a certain town, and I would be like, here's an arc. There's goblins, and they're organized into a big army instead of just small little bands, and you need to resolve that. And we did that. And then when we were done with it, we were done with it. We didn't need to worry about it again. The arc was done. You guys leveled up. You moved on. Then you had an arc with some werewolves, a short arc. I think it's a session or two, but it happened and it was done, and you moved on. And so on and so forth. And we that was the way it worked then. I would present a scenario for you guys. You would go and do that quest and kind of resolve it. And then we'd just move on and we'd keep on moving on to new things. The problem with the current campaign that I've noticed, and it's fine, it's still a fun campaign. I think we're also having fun.
Oh, yeah.
But I feel as though it's detrimental to the pacing of the campaign, because over the first 10 or so levels, I basically gave you guys a whole bunch of different arcs and things that are happening in the world. And it's kind of like when you play pardon me, it's kind of like when you play like an Elder Scrolls game or something like that, and if you don't complete quests, after a while you just have a rake of quests in your backlog, and you haven't started a single one of them, and then you're like, oh man, I've like 20 side quests, I should really do some of these, and then you end up just speed running a whole bunch of them later on in the game.
They're currently describing my Elden Ring experience at 120 hours in.
So there you go. So it's like, and it's not bad, and you're still having fun. You're still playing the game.
Oh no, I finished the game. I'm just currently like, I did a bunch of smaller stuff. I know I'm being milled by the hardest boss in this whole series.
But like, I just feel like it's detrimental to the storytelling aspect of the game, because it's like, oh, we started these 5 things over months and months in levels 3 to 9 or 10 or whatever, and now between levels 11 and 17, 18, whatever, we're going back to resolve each of those things now. And I'm like, I think that's maybe a poor pacing mechanic, because realistically what I should have done is I should have been like, okay, let's just do an arc and play that arc out, and then move on to something else and play that out, because then you're getting the full experience. It's like watching a movie, like watching the first hour and a half of a movie, and then like a week later coming back and watching the last hour of the movie. It's like you still got to see all the movie, but the pacing is kind of affected because you walked away and you did other stuff and you came back and you're like, what were we up? Oh, that's right, we're doing this thing. Okay, we're watching that bit. Okay.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you. I would like I'd not like I can see where you're coming from and I get what you mean. But like personally speaking, I'd not like the way you've done it now, at least, because like we've all kind of had like we'll have like an initial arc kind of thing, like what we were doing with like because we did like pre level 5 or around level 5, I think we did some Kale stuff with me, and now now we're come back to like level 14 and we're doing more, and like the one thing I would say that's a benefit of that is like you have the opportunity as both the DM and for us as players where we have our initial kind of incursion or excursion in that area. We do a thing, we complete a goal, we do like, and we did a pretty big thing when we were there as well. Like we stopped a war, and then we came back, and it was rather then we left, and then after a good bit of time now we're coming back, and we can now see the consequences of what we've done previously, and we're dealing with all that now. So we can like. And like some of that stuff as a D&D player you normally only kind of really see either in like the epilogue of your campaign where your GM is like, and this is how your actions have affected the world, or like if you do a follow-up campaign in the same world and then your DM gets to do lots of fun things like Matt Mercer is doing at the moment in campaign 3 where he's like, oh, you get a letter from someone high on a council. Who could it be?
Yeah, it's like, one of your previous characters.
I know. You can do a lot of fun stuff like that as well. So like while I do get where you're coming from with that, I don't necessarily think it's been like detrimental to the campaign as a whole or anything, but I can see as a DM where you're looking at kind of like the arcs and the stories, and like we've kind of I suppose it's just like a different approach. We're in the other campaign like, and like I'm running my game more so like we did in campaign 1, but I think that's probably a lot more to do with it being my first campaign, and as a DM I find it a lot easier to go like, okay, we're going to do this and then I'm going to build this on and then this on and then this on and kind of lead that way around. But as I've gotten more used to DMing in later stages, now I just go, here are 9 plot hooks. What one do you want? like what way do you want to go? So look, I've half transitioned more towards what you're kind of doing now, but I do get what you mean. Like when you do the whole arc, I think you can get a satisfying like start, middle, end kind of thing.
You get a nicely paced story where you have conflict and resolution, and like you said, the beginning, middle, and end. It's a nicely rounded out. Personally, I hadn't really considered it where you're coming from, where you I think Kale is maybe like not. In the case of our campaign, you guys had an arc where there was a queen. She came into power through questionable means, and then she was willing to go and start a war with the neighboring Elven kingdom. And you guys are like, we can't do that. That'll mean we're going to be at war for decades, and thousands of people will die and stuff. We need to stop her before she instigates that war. And you did that, and I feel like that was in and of itself an arc. And now you are coming back and seeing the consequences and the side effects of that. So I feel like that's one thing, and then the Fomorians, I feel like which you are who you're going up against now. These ancient giants looking to reclaim the world for giant kind. I feel like this is like a separate arc, but taking place in the same vein. So that's maybe not the best one, like to kind of describe what I'm kind of on about. For me, it's more like the Seekers, who are this secret organization that are pledged to an elder god, and they crave knowledge and stuff like that. The Seeker thing we did a fair stretch of, but that kind of got messed up in the pacing because I wanted to do one last arc, one last like session or two that would have rounded out that nicely, and then put a pin in it properly from a storytelling perspective. Would have put a pin in that, and we could have come back to it later, no problem. Instead, you guys were like, because I left you guys so open, it was like I was like, hey, there's this asylum, huh? How about that? You know, there could be someone there to talk to. And then you guys were like, oh, but what if it's this entirely separate town that's like 3 weeks away by carriage? And I'm like, yeah, that works too. Sure. Yeah. And then like I actually kept that plot running. Originally, you guys were meant to go to that asylum and confront your man while he was still in there. But then in order to I had to like escalate things to like move the plot along. Martin, we're getting a bit off topic. Yeah. That's maybe a conversation for an entirely separate episode of the podcast. Yeah. Martin, let's talk about Warlocks.
Yeah, sworn and beholden.
uh, Warlocks are. Oh, it's the title of the thing. Okay, I was wondering. That's an interesting thing to call out. I'm like, oh, it's the first paragraph of
Yeah,
the.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I also just love how that sounds.
Yeah, it does sound pretty cool. Um, Martin, what are your opinions on Warlocks? Well,
I really like Warlocks. I think there's like vaguely I have an idea that I think some people in the D&D fandom aren't the biggest fans of it, ironically. Yeah, no, I really like them. I think they're like a super versatile. Well, like maybe versatile isn't quite. No, they are. No, no, screw that. They're a super versatile class in my opinion. Like they do have their limitations with their spell slots and stuff, and like how many you have and stuff like that, which is really the big drawback I would say. But like I think in exchange for what you get in terms of like your patron and your pact, and then the various invocations you get as you level later, I think it's really worth it. There's so much like roleplay opportunity with that class as well, like just between you and your patron. Are you going to follow them? Are you not going to follow them? The consequences of either actions. Yeah, I think there's just a lot there as both a player and a DM for you to sink your teeth into. If, like, either if you want to play a warlock or if someone is playing a warlock. And now there is like a level of additional commitment when you're DMing for like a warlock, same as if you're DMing for like a cleric or a paladin or a cleric or a paladin. A cleric or a paladin, where you're gonna be role playing like a higher being or a deity of some kind. But like that's fun as well, you know. So yeah, overall, 2 thumbs up for the old warlocks. I'm a big fan.
yeah, no, I would completely agree. Versatile is actually like one of the first words here in my notes. I think they're one of, both from a design perspective and from a utility perspective, I think Warlocks have a lot going for them. I've said it before, I think they're one of my favorite designed classes for the first 5 levels, because at level 1 you pick your patron, at level 2 you get your invocation. I think you get your pact actually. Level 3 you get your invocations, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
And then level 4 you get an ASI or a feat.
Yeah.
And then you hit 5th level, and like by the time you hit 5th level, you've made like 4, and then you've erased stuff as well, and backgrounds and all that. But you've made 4 or 5 really big, impactful choices by the time you hit 5th level, which means that even if 2 warlocks start off and they both want to be Pact of Fey, or they both want to be celestial or whatever, you know, they might be very, very different by the time they hit 5th level, even though they're technically playing the same class and subclass, you know.
I think that could even be like, I think it could be really fun if you had 2, like, say like 2 Faylocks, just out of just because you mentioned it there. If you had 2 Fey Archfey warlocks, and like then one goes pact and one goes blade, you can like narratively spin that into like you are 2 different factions of agents for this archfey. You are the martial might, and you are the like the mental might, like the spy or the spellcaster or whatever like that. You know, you can. I think you could. There's an opportunity there within just the fact that the 2 of them are the same. They might not even have the same patron, or if they do this, they could even pick the same patron, and you could still do it. And do like where it's like you could do some just world building purely based off the fact that they pick the same patron but 2 different pact versions. Like you could, see that like already you can just do like your Fae has different factions for different purposes, and they recruit exceptional people who are particularly good in this part to do that. We lost you again for a brief second there.
I tried to stay still, hoping you would just keep talking.
I did,
and then I would just like chime back in.
I did. It came back in right away.
My internet is testing me today now. But speaking of testing me, I was wrong. It's actually invocations and then Pact Boon at level 3.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think honestly I love them from a design perspective. I wish more classes in D&D had that many choices that early on, so you could really distinguish your own character from other members of the party. Like everyone has their subclass, and maybe you have some choices within that subclass. If you're like a barbarian, Pact of the Totem, you know, you pick what animal you want to correspond with as well. So there's other classes that have that. Or ranger gets if you pick ranger, hunter, you can choose like horde breaker or slayer and all that kind of stuff.
So you get your fighting style at level 2.
You get your fighting style. You get your if you're a battle master, you can pick different manuevers. So there is stuff there, but I just wish there was a more broad stroke across the board with D&D where more people got that. So I really like Warlocks. I think they're great. I think they're, like you said, they're very flavorful both for the player and the DM, because the player gets to have this person, this being, this creature, whatever it is, that they can communicate with and have roleplay moments with, and the DM gets to have fun doing that kind of stuff. And also, like, I feel like from a we were talking about like pacing and story and stuff like that. A warlock is a great way to be like you're essentially the radio person for the party, and I, as the patron now, I'm going to give you a mission. I don't need for you guys to stumble across someone or to kind of like think of clever ways that you might come across this new quest. I can just be like, bling bling, hello, yes, this is your patron here. I'd like for you to go and do this now, please. Thank you very much. Bye.
Yeah, I'm gonna need 18 souls, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Oh man, 18 really? Ooh, you shouldn't have questioned me. Now it's 19.
oh, do you want to make it 20? We can make it 20,
We can
25.
make it 20.
Okay. Oh man, yeah. I hope in the next game I run one of my players picks Warlock. Actually, it'll be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're great. They're really fun, and they're not the biggest on like raw power in any capacity.
No,
I think they can be very useful. A bit of a Swiss Army knife. They're good at a lot of different things. They're great at very few things.
Yeah.
But that being said, you can. I think warlocks can make you feel like you're useful in a lot of different scenarios if you build them right. So we have a whole host here of different Warlock patrons. I'd like to go through those with you just very quickly, and get your kind of opinions on them. The Archfey. So the Archfey is an Archfey. They're your patron. This is kind of a good one. I think in the original three that we see in the book, we have the Archfey, the Fiend, and the Great Old One.
Yes.
The Fiend is obviously the bad one. There's an evil person there. The Great Old One could be evil, but might lean towards neutral as well.
Yeah.
And the Archfey, I think, can be anything because the Feywild is so broad. You can literally pick a good line Fey, a bad line Fey, or a neutral Fey.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's lots there, and I think as a particular subclass, if you look at their spell list and the abilities that they have, they focus a lot around illusion and trickery, about charming or frightening people, and about less. They make for good spies. I think they're less about getting stuck in with danger and stuff, and more about kind of circumventing that.
Yeah, I was laughing because that's the patron I picked for my paladin, which very much got stuck into everything.
Yeah.
But no, they're really fun spell lists. Like I think I got the second level Warlock spells because I went to 3 levels in Warlock. I went 17 paladin, 3 Warlock.
Yes, I feel like you had Phantasmal Force.
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, because I definitely had Fairy Fire because I was like, I hate things not being able to see things. I can't hit them. Let's take Fairy Fire. Fairy Fire and Phantasmal Force. Phantasmal Force is such a fun spell because you can just make up whatever happens and then they're damaged in a way that makes sense. It's so fun.
That particular part of that spell I do love so much, where it says it gives you an example of like if you is that the one where it says like if there's a bridge and they try to walk across it, you make the illusion of a bridge, and if they try to walk across it and miss it because there's nothing there, their brain will justify that you must have slipped to the side at the last second or something like that.
Yeah, or
I love that so much.
Or you can cast on them and make them think that they're surrounded by flames and they will take damage accordingly.
Yeah, they won't take fire damage, but they will take psychic, I believe.
It's psychic, which is even better.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but they'll think they're hot. They'll think they're burning and on fire, but actually no, it's just that. That's really good. You also make them think they're underwater, have them drowned as well.
Yeah, it's you can get real messed up with Phantasmal Force if you want.
It's a great. I think it's if you're talking about illusions and trickery and mind games and stuff, it's such a quintessential low level spell. It's a great one for if you were playing like a Scarlet Witch character or something like that, just to get in someone's head. Like think about Age of Ultron style, get in someone's head and make them see all this stuff that can, drastically affect them.
Really cool.
The Warlocks have a lot of stuff about being charmed and charming your enemies and frightening your enemies and stuff like that. Like I said, I think they'd make for very good spies, infiltrators, stuff like that. They're not big on raw power.
The spells.
But that's okay.
Like,
I mean, like you still get.
Oriented.
Say again?
Yeah, their spell, like I was just saying, their spell list isn't super combat orientated. Like,
no, there's certainly things in here you could use. But I mean, like if you look at stuff like they have their Misty Escape ability at 6th level, which lets them teleport away and become invisible when they take damage. They also have the spell Blink. They have greater invisibility. They have Seeming. This is all stuff you can use to avoid getting into a fight, or if you're in a fight, avoid being hit. So they're very much about maybe keeping on the outskirts, this is of someone who would probably benefit very well from, if you want to go back to the blade, having the advanced or the improved packed weapon where you could take a bow and kind of hang back, or if you want to go if you're going more spell oriented, just use Eldritch Blast and again hang back and pick people off from a distance, because you're not going to be the most in the thick of it combatant when you're playing the Archfey.
Generally, no.
Generally, no. Up next, we have the Celestial. I love the Celestial Warlock. I think they're great.
Now the actual de facto good aligned Warlock.
Yes, exactly. The definitively good aligned Warlock. I think they're great. I think they have a cool list of spells here. They get Guiding Bolt, Cure Wounds, Revivify, Lesser Restoration, Guardian of Faith, Wall of Fire. They get a lot of fire and stuff. So it's a lot of fire and brimstone, radiant damage, kind of smoting your enemies, kind of thing.
Just the actual ones they get straight up from Celestial are pretty damn good too. Like Healing Light, Radiant Soul, Celestial Resilience, Searing Vent. Oh, their features. Duh. Sorry, Martin. Yeah.
One thing I do love about them is they're actually fairly effective healers. They get a pool of d6s equal to and you get a number equal to 1 plus your Warlock level.
Yes.
So that's quite a fair amount. It's actually comparable when you think about it, because as a paladin you would get 5 lay on hands per level. You get a d6 which averages out at 4, so it's not too different in the amount you get. But the great thing about it is paladins have to use an action and have to touch someone. You can do this as a bonus action to anyone within 60 feet of you, and you can choose how many of those dice you can choose how many dice you spend up to a number equal to your charisma modifier. So you can't go beyond your charisma modifier.
Having a healer that refreshes healing spells on a short rest is pretty sick.
And you get you get to dice back on a long rest only.
No, but I just mean in the fact that, like, because you are a Celestial Warlock, you can take healing spells. You have Cure Wounds.
Oh, like Cure Wounds and stuff. So, like, absolutely.
You have Cure Wounds, Revivify, Lesser Restoration, and Greater Restoration, all on a short rest cooldown.
Yeah.
Which is, like, oh no, you don't get Spare the Dying. But, like, if you have someone in the party who can cast Spare the Dying, just to keep if someone dies, just to stop them from going past the limit of time. Like, you could literally be like, right, keep casting Spirit of Dying on them while I finish a short rest. And then I finish a short rest and come back and go, Revivify.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love them. I think they're great for they're great, like, buff and healing related Warlock, which not a lot of the other Warlocks can do. I think some of them can buff. I don't think very many of them can heal at all.
I don't think so.
They're more like a sorcerer and stuff like that, where they don't have any healing spells.
Yeah, Warlock more has, like, damage negation with, like, Armor of Agathis, Mage Armor, that kind of stuff. Like,
exactly.
Vampiric Touch, I think they can get Vampiric Touch as well.
I think it's a high level one for them as well. Yeah. Up next we have a cool one that came out very recently, which is the Fathomless.
Yes.
I love the Fathomless. I think it's so cool. It's a bit of an odd one in terms of where it fits in. It does extra damage because you get that tentacle you can summon and do cold damage. You can be slapping people with that. It also gives you a little bit of control battlefield wise, because you can summon it within 60 feet of you, and you can move it around as well. So you can be doing a fair amount of battlefield control, penning people in and stopping them from going places, and kind of pincering them, if that makes sense. You also get a lot of really cool damaging spells like Thunder Wave, Lightning Bolt, Summon Elemental's always cool, and Cone of Cold. Cone of Cold is so bloody deadly, man.
Yeah, I love 5th level Digby's hand appears as a tentacle.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't see that actually. Yeah. I think this is a great one. It's very utility based. A lot of what they do is it revolves around that tentacle or around them getting water related stuff. So you get swim speed, you get breathing underwater, you get resistance to cold damage. You can do a thing where you can negate damage with your tentacle as well at 6th level. You learn Everard's Black Tentacles at 10th level. You can cast it once without a spell slot. Great skill, yeah. And then I do love their Fathomless Plunge, the 14th level ability, which lets you, as an action, teleport yourself and up to 5 other willing creatures you can see within 30 feet of you. Which, by the way, is a very broad radius to be able to just pluck people off the battlefield and potentially just bamf out in a moment.
Right, 30 feet is if it's a 30-foot radius, right? That's like 30 is 6 5s, so you can have 6 characters along, like, side by side along that radius, and you can do that full 360 degrees.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So,
you.
but I mean, like you and 5 other creatures
Oh,
is
sorry.
the size of
I'm.
most parties.
Yeah, I'm
You
being
you you were
dumb.
thinking about the maximum number
I
of
was
people you
like,
could possibly bring.
holy shit, you could bring like 30 people.
No, it is
Uh,
limited to 6 people,
yeah,
but you can basically teleport up to a mile away. Then,
that's pretty sick.
um,
You have to have seen it, but that's still like I've seen I've seen
it
the ocean while I've been flying past. Like, you
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that's basically it's a shorter range. That's a teleport spell.
know. Hmm.
You don't need to have people close to you. It's an action. So if it fight that's going really badly, kind of south,
Hmm.
you can be like, okay, we're not all grouped up because that guy's pinned down 20 feet away by some whatevers, and this guy is over here and he's nearly dead. If he tries to move towards me, this guy's going to get an attack of opportunity on him. Like, we need to get out of here though. As one action, Tentacle comes, snaps up all those people, teleports, and you're a mile away. And
It's
you get either time to rest or time to start running and getting some distance. It's a great one. And even just for general travel, if you need to like get somewhere fast, oh, where the bandits are going to beat us back to town, we need to get there ASAP. We can overtake them with something like this.
and like it doesn't have to be massive either. Pond size or larger. Like I love the idea of like
Yeah.
we're gonna destroy the town. Like all the armies charging in, and there's like there's like a particularly large puddle in front of the front
Yeah.
gates of the castle, and the whole party just goes shoop up through it. Like
I
that's
just
so
picture
cool.
like I just picture like several large tentacles. It's again a tiny little puddle,
I think we've lost you again.
and they just pluck
Oh,
you onto the ground, and the tentacles are like 20 feet high, and you're just there like, oh, thank you, patron, and they
yeah.
all go back
It's
down into it.
it's very very like Lovecraftian clown car, you know, like
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
yeah. Ooh, Fiend next, I believe.
There was a scene okay, we won't go into it in too much
Mm.
depth because of that, but there
Oh
was a scene that had to do with reflections in Multiverse of Madness.
yes, yeah,
That
yeah.
was very similar to the tiniest little reflections in pools of water and stuff. Kind of reminds me of that. Very
Very
cool.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
In case you guys are wondering, Martin and Connor endorse Multiverse of Madness. It's a great film. You should definitely go watch it.
Yes, sir.
Up next we have the Fiend, the classic evil. Although we say it's a classic evil one, I would love to see someone playing a Fiend who's like trying to redeem himself. So he's like hiring people to be like, "Hey, will you be my patron, but help me do good things so that I can get like a decent reputation?" Like he just wants to redeem himself. That could be kind of fun.
Yeah, no, that'd be a really interesting one. That'd definitely be one where you'd probably run into a few issues with your patron down the road where it'll be like, no, I don't want to like kill 9 babies. Please, can I maybe, I don't know, kill the bad guys instead? Uh,
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
you're grand. You're grand. You're grand. Well, I was just saying like that'll be one where you might run into a few issues down the road with your patron. Saying like, yeah, your patron wants you to kill like 9 babies. You're like, can I like kill the bad guys instead? Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, just
It's like
maybe.
I need 9 souls.
Like they were
Can it be
babies.
nine? Can it be 9 souls of really bad people?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Fine. Okay.
I,
As long as I get my souls.
I can do quantity, but quality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they do get
So
really good spell lists as well.
they get a really like full of just damaging. They get Burning Hands, Scorching Ray, Fireball, Sinking Cloud, Fire Shield, Wall of Fire, a lot of fire.
Flame strike, Hallow, all like yeah,
There's a lot of really powerful, really damaging spells here.
yeah, and like even doesn't Fire Shield give you resistance to cold as well?
I think you pick which one you want. It can either give you resistance to cold, or resistance to fire, if I'm mistaken. Or am I thinking of a different one? That's Fire Shield.
I'm reading it right now. Yeah, we're both thinking of a different one. I think. The attack
Oh no,
grants 2d8
flames
fire.
provide you with a
Yeah,
warm shield or chill shield. You choose as you choose. The warm shield grants resistance to cold. The chill shield
there it is.
grants resistance to fire. Yeah.
Yeah,
So this one has a lot of damage related to it as well, but also
kind
kind
of
of there's
tanky.
some a little bit tanky. Very cannony. A lot of like blasting fire spells, but also like some really cool kind of like self-healing and self-buff things. Your Dark One's Blessing, which is your first
Yeah.
level ability, which when you reduce someone to 0 hit points, you gain 10 HP equal to your Charisma modifier plus your Warlock level.
Like if
There's
you've
no
if
there's
you've
no limit on the amount of times you can use that.
if you've 20 charisma, Like that's pretty significant. Like 5 HP is nothing to sneer at. Like, and
Yeah.
you can get 20 charisma pretty early if you roll stats and get lucky. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then what's it? They have Dark One's Luck, which gives them rerolls on. Oh, yeah, sorry, it's not. It's to add a D10 to your abilities.
that's still pretty
To
good.
an
Like
ability.
that's
Oh yeah, absolutely.
you roll a 10 and that 6 is a 16, and suddenly that check looks a whole lot different.
Fiendish Resilience, which is 10th level. When you basically take a short or long rest, you can choose to be resistant to one damage type. Again, that's great because I mean, like
Yeah.
you might have like I don't know some one resistant on in the morning, and then on a short rest, you're like, oh, we just discovered that now there's an ice dragon, a white dragon in the mix. I got to change over to frost resistance or ice resistance, and easily doable. So, like you said, a little bit tanky.
You could just pick
I
like slashing resistance because very like most of the time when you're getting hit by like it's just a general monster or like a physical attack from a monster,
yeah,
it's usually slashing damage.
claws, yeah, or slashing or piercing if it's
Like piercing is usually
a
the
bite.
bite, but like
Yeah.
most of the time, like it's slashing usually. Like so, like you could just pick that for general combat and be like, yeah, I'm basically a barbarian for like most of the time.
Yeah. I love their 14th level ability
Yeah,
here.
what a name.
Burl through hell. So basically, you select a creature and instantly. Oh, sorry. When you hit the creature with an attack, you instantly transport the target to the lower planes. At the end of your next turn, the target returns to the space it previously occupied or the next nearest space. If the target is not a fiend, it takes 10d10 psychic damage as it reels from the
Yeah.
horrific experience. I
This
love
is
that. It's fun. It's flavorful and
like
it's powerful.
I'm like 90% certain that was a scorpion fatality in the last Mortal Kombat. Like I am like
It
ninety
was.
percent
It was.
certain, like, where you just chuck them into the bowels of hell and demons do
Open up
awful
a
things.
fire portal and throw them through, like.
Yeah, like it's oh god, that's such a sick ability. And like 10d10 psychic damage, that's a lot of damage.
And it's psychic.
As yeah, that's potential.
Even a totem barb can't resist that. Like,
That's potential 100 damage. Like oh
like you're liable to. It's a 14th ability, so it's
Yeah.
quite high, and it's a 1 to long rest as well. But there's no save on that. It's just if you hit them with an attack, they're just sent,
yeah. If you
which is really good.
absolutely sending it, yeah.
Yeah. Up next, we have one I really, really love, is the genie. This one has an interesting kind of design
It's got, like-
development behind it. Because when they first released this as part of the UA, it was the noble genie was the patron or whatever,
think so,
and they had some very generic genie related spells and powers related to it, as if you're basically kind of like looking at like an Aladdin style genie
Yeah.
where he's not attuned to any particular element.
Will Smith
Instead, he's
had,
just
yeah.
this wispy kind of magical being. They eventually revised it because when they said genie, I was really pumped because I wanted an elemental style patron for warlocks.
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't dislike the genie as it was then, but I'm like it just seems a bit too generic.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now that
so
you
what they
mentioned
did is
elemental patrons, I just had thought like, how is there not like a Phoenix Warlock patron?
well, I mean, we kind of, in a way, we kind of have this one now, which does give us, because when they revised it, they
Oh,
gave
yeah,
us
yeah.
specific Dao, Jin, Ifrit, and Marid spells and patrons. So we can pick a generic kind of, again, wispy kind of genie from Aladdin style guy who helps you out there, or we can go specific into one of the different elemental genies as your patron, which is like that gives you a lot of elemental stuff, as does the fathomless. Though you could play the fathomless and just say that a powerful Marid is your patron as well, very easily, you know.
Totally.
Because you still get all that kind of stuff. So I like that they kept the original one, because I do feel like there are some people who liked although it wasn't what I was asking for when they first designed this genie in the UA, and they put in all the generic genie spells. It wasn't what I asked for, but I did think that they really captured that flavor quite nicely.
Yeah.
Now what they've done instead is they've just given you a lot of different kind of elemental related spells. If you want, you get to pick from 5 different spell lists with this, which again we talked about. Warlocks having a lot of choice in the early levels. You could even have 2 people who are genie warlocks, and then one of them could pick an Ifrit, and one of them could pick like the generic genie one or a Dao or something like that as well. You know.
Yeah, totally. Like and the spells are really good. Like I'm just reading over them again here because it's been a while since I looked at the genie. But like, just like Ifriti gets Fireball, Marid gets Sleet Storm, and Cone of Cold, which are both really strong. Ginny. Yeah, Ginny. They get like Seeming, Greater Invisibility. Wind Wall is actually a really strong spell. Like it's super powerful. Like the disadvantage on ranged attacks is like so good.
Yeah.
And like there's Dow as well. Then you get like Wall of Stone. Yeah, like
Stone Shape, Maelstone.
Creation then from the regular genies. Wish, of course.
It's a 9th level, yes, but you do get Wish.
I would be if they had put out a genie subclass for Warlock and you didn't get Wish at 9th level, I would be so mad. I would be so upset.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, you only get it with the generic one, but I'm kind of okay with that. I think it gives a reason to want to potentially use that one, you know?
Yeah, but like there's also only one 9th level spell for the subclass, and it is Wish. So technically, every genie can do Wish, which makes sense as well. Because I would be super pissed if I was like, wait, only that one gets Wish? No, fuck, like screw this, man. Come on.
So a couple of cool things they get. They basically get a genie's bottle that they can live in. Now. There is a couple of caveats, and it does become better as they level. But one of the things early on is you can go into this thing. There's a space inside. They say it's full of cushions and low tables and stuff, which I think is very Agrabah in its like style. But you could easily customize that to make it anything really. But it's a cool thing. You can only stay in it for twice your proficiency bonus, I think, originally.
A number of hours equal to twice your proficiency bonus. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So originally okay, here's the thing. Even at like 3rd level, right? By the time you have this at 3rd level, if you're playing an elf of any kind, that's enough for you to have a long rest in a safe location.
Yeah.
Because you only need 4 hours. So that's really cool. They also get a thing called genie. So that bottled respite, which is essentially the genie's lamp. It can also be an urn or a stopward bottle, or a multitude of different things. You also get genie's wrath, which is you can do some additional elemental damage when you hit with an attack roll. So that means that would work for like hitting someone with Eldritch Blast. You can do the additional damage and stuff on top of it. The damage type differs. It can be bludgeoning for Dow, thunder for Djinn, fire for Ifrit, or cold for Marid. Actually, there's none actually there for the generic one. Now that I think about it, which is interesting. Did they just not get that? Is it like a trade-off on the fact that you get Wish added to your spell list? But that doesn't seem particularly fair. Since you wouldn't be using Wish until 17th level, and even then, you may only get to cast it once in your character's entire life because of the way it's written.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a weird one, right?
Interesting. But they also get a thing. Sorry, go on.
I would guess most players, because like everyone, like it's everyone themes their character. I don't care if you say you don't. You theme your character. So I feel like if anyone's going to pick the genie, you're like, all right, I'm going. Oh, like everyone's done the elemental personality test. They're going to be like, oh, I'm more of a lightning kind of guy. I'll take this. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be much of an issue. But yeah, it is a bit weird that it's written that way.
Yeah. They give you some stats for your genie, your bottle, your stoppered bottle, your lamp.
Yep.
With its AC is equal to your spell save, which is pretty cool actually. To have something tied to your spell save that you can buff out even further, you know. It's immune to poison and psychic. That's pretty standard. If you lose it, you can get it back with a 1 hour ceremony, which is pretty good as well.
Yeah.
Their elemental gift ability, again, see here, elemental gift, right? You begin to take on the characteristics of your patron. You get a resistance based on which of the genies you pick: bludgeoning for Dow, thunder for Djinn, fire for Ifrit, cold for Marid. In addition, as a bonus action, you can give yourself a fly speed of 30 feet that lasts for 10 minutes, during which you can hover. But again, so I suppose you would get this.
I think you've made a slight misunderstanding in how the genie expanded it. So there's the genie list that everyone has access. It works like cleric does, where there's the genie list which everyone has access to. Is the genie expanded spell list. Then based on which patron you pick of the four, you get those as well. So everyone at level 1 will get detect evil and good, but only the Dow will get sanctuary and detect evil and good. And that way, that's the same. Like everybody gets wish, and that's why it's not mentioned further down, because you have to pick one of the 4 elements.
Yes. So you get two spell. You always have two spell lists, and one of them is always the generic genie one, and then you pick your specific element as well.
It's literally the same as a cleric or a paladin, where you have your generic cleric list, and it's just because warlocks get the expanded spell list, so they have the warlock list, and then you have the expanded genie warlock spell list that everyone can access to, and then you have another smaller spell list that gets tacked onto that based on one of your 4-element patrons.
If there's anyone listening to this now, having listened to us talk about that the way we did for the last couple of minutes, they're probably tearing their hair out going, these guys don't get it at all.
No, I was like, sounds a bit weird, but yeah, go.
Yeah. No, that's cool. That makes a lot more sense then. I do love that you get a fly speed, just a 10-minute fly speed that you can just activate. Again, in keeping with that genie theme, if I was doing something like that now, I would absolutely be like, oh, my genie's in a freak, so my character has a swirling, his legs become swirling fire, and I kind of just hover up proper genie style, you know?
Yeah.
There is the sanctuary, so this is when you can start bringing people into the 10th level. You can start bringing people into your genie's bottle. This is when it essentially functions as a almost like the magnificent or the
Layman's tiny hut, or more than
Layman's tiny hut,
magnificent mansion. Yes.
Yeah. You can basically bring up to 5 willing creatures within 30 feet into it. I thought a while ago this would be kind of cool because one is, you could like decide, okay, we're going to use this to sleep tonight, and by the time you're 10th level, you have enough of a proficiency bonus that you can sleep in this thing. You can spend enough hours in here that you can sleep in here. But also, I thought it'd be kind of fun if like if your characters are in a situation with someone where they're like, you better come alone to this meeting, you know, and then you're like, you have your talisman around your neck, and in a moment,
it can be a ring. Like a ring is written, like you can just have a ring on. You'd be like, you idiot, you came alone. Oh, did I? And you like tap the ring and your party pops out.
and 6 people just pop out of it, and you're like, haha, the whole party's in now.
I've an interesting question for you about the sanctuary vessel, which is just another stupid. Do you know what? My brain just runs with ideas. So, when you enter a genie's vessel, you can choose 5 willing creatures that you can see within 30 feet to come in with you. As a bonus action, you can eject any numbers of creatures from the vessel. Everyone is ejected if you leave or die, or if the vessel is destroyed. It doesn't say anything where when the vessel is destroyed, the damage carries over to you.
No. So I think if someone hit the vessel with something really damaging, it would just destroy the vessel, and you would just pop out and be perfectly fine.
Oh no, I was more thinking like everyone gets into the bottle. You fly the bottle over like the enemy base or something, or somewhere you've infiltrated into, and you just drop the bottle.
Just drop it.
When the bottle breaks, you all get ejected out. You take no damage, and then the warlock just needs to make an hour-long ceremony to get it back.
Yeah, true.
Like it's stupid, but I love it. like you could literally, oh my god, you could just literally get someone strong to chuck the bottle over the wall.
In a siege, just chuck it over the wall, get rid of it, and then you hear a bottle break on the far side, and screams and clanging metal on metal starts going out. Yeah.
SEAL Team 6 with a genie, like.
Their 14th level ability then is very, very cool. It is basically you get the spell. You can cast any spell that is 6th level or lower. Has a casting time of 1 action, but it can be from any spell list. So you can pick any spell, and your genie will grant that spell for you. Now you can't do it again for 1d4 long rests, but still, that's a super, super cool ability, and it's a great way to be like, you get a wish from your genie patron without getting a proper wish, you know.
I think it also stacks particularly nicely with the Mystic Arcanum that you get from Warlock, where you can pick spell. Do you know the way is Mystic Arcanum? Yeah, where you pick spells from another spell list that you can have, and you can do them like once a day without expending or it's either once a day without expending a spell slot, or once a day expending a Warlock spell slot. I can't remember which. But like it just stacks real nice, because now you're getting like, you already have your double expanded Warlock spell list because of genie and then your elemental spells, but then you also have your like invocations that are giving you more spells, and then you have limited wish, which can replicate another spell of 6th level from any spell list. Like that's pretty awesome.
It is very, very cool. Moving on, we have the Great Old One for all you Cthulhu fans out there. Great Old One's really cool. It has some cool kind of, it's got a lot of like debuff and kind of crowd control stuff between like Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Dissonant Whispers, Phantasmal Force, Evar's Black Tentacles, Dominate Beast. It's a little similar in theme to the Archfey in that there's some mind control and mind altering stuff there. it's good for utility and stuff like that. You get a lot of telepathic abilities, so you can communicate with people over
Yeah,
distance.
it's very much themed and kind of also very much themed about like mentally dominating something, which is very much in the theme of the old ones and stuff.
Yeah. Here's what I think is your favorite one, Martin. The Hexblade, and probably
Are
the
we not
favorite of a
gonna?
lot of
Or
people.
I
Oh,
was gonna
sorry,
say,
what?
are we not gonna go through the great old one?
I'm just conscious of time as
Oh,
well.
sorry. Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's go through the hexblade. I love the hexblade.
Uh, so the Hexblade is very good. The Hexblade is your martial warlock. Essentially, they're good at melee combat, not necessarily just melee, because you can get
Yeah.
the hex or the improved pact weapon. Take a bow if you want as well, but they are the martial weapon users. They are good in combat. They get armor. They're very very good in one-on-ones.
Yes,
Because they
order
curse
hexes and
someone.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can hex someone and you can curse someone with your Hexblade's curse. You get crits on a 19 or 20 against that person. The target takes extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus when you hit them with attack. If they die, you regain hit points from them as well. And you can also do the thing later on, which is your a cursed specter. So someone I think who you have cursed dies, you can cause them to raise up as a specter, which you have control of.
I think probably the most I think one of the most powerful one that like one of the most powerful ones is the 10th level feature, Armor of Hexes. Yeah, if you curse someone with your Hexblade's curse at 10th level, if they hit you with an attack roll, you roll a d6 on 4 or higher, the attack roll misses, regardless of roll. So that even with a crit.
That's actually really cool. So yeah, and like I said, in a one-on-one situation, if there's a single dragon you are fighting and you curse that dragon, you're going to get extra damage and attacks, potentially more crits on that dragon, and the dragon's going to have a very very hard time hitting you. It's like honestly, it's designed to. It's very much a duelist kind of class. It's like, okay, let's go one-on-one. I'm gonna debuff you and buff myself. You know.
I swear as well there was because I made a hexblade recently, and I swear was there a hexblade ability where like where you can like teleport after someone you've hexed.
I believe that might be an invocation.
Ah, that's it. It's that. No, you know that's a Pact of the Blade thing, I think.
I think it's a back to the blade specific invocation, yeah, where you can bonus action teleport to them, but
Yes.
you have to make an attack on them or something like that. Then yeah,
Yeah,
it's very very Dishonored in style.
As an Pact of the Blade pairs real nicely with Hexblade.
Yeah, this is one of those ones where a lot of the other classes you can play melee or weapons wielder if you want, or you can go Pact of the Chain, or you can go Pact of the Tome. You're really really best off going Pact of the Blade when it comes to the Hexblade Warlock. It builds on itself really nicely. The last two are kind of strange ones, because we have the Pact of the Undead, which I believe we got in Van Richten's guide.
We did.
And then we also have the Pact of the Undying, which we got in Sword Coast Adventurer's guide, which wizards would really like if we all forgot about.
Which one of these is Laudna in Critical Role again?
She is actually. I think she is.
I think she's undead, isn't she?
She's undead because she has the Form of Dread ability, where she can like shift her form and instill fear and stuff.
That's why I asked. Because the undead is the tank warlock.
Yeah. Oh, like they're both pretty difficult to kill in the same way that like a zealot barbarian kind of is, where they have abilities where it's hard to get them to fall unconscious or drop to 0 and stuff like that. And they both have resistances against death abilities, but it really feels like when you look at the two of them, the Undying was the prototype or the beta version of the Undead, because the Undead, in my opinion, even if you look at their spell lists and stuff like that, they're very very similar in spell lists. They both get like False Life, Ray of Sickness, Blindness, and Deafness, Death Ward. I think they both get Speak with Dead as well. Yeah, they both get a lot of the same things.
Anti-life shell on the undead though in versus I think it's Phantasmal Killer and Cloud Kill for Undying. So I think I would say undead is maybe even more themed around that, like because anti-life shell is anything that's alive can't come in, isn't it?
I forget what the actual specifics of anti-life shell are, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, anti-life shell is that it's a barrier that prevents creatures that are alive basically from entering.
Uh, it's interesting because obviously we have our base subclasses in the player's handbook, and then we look at what's in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, which was the first time we got additional subclasses and stuff like that. And when you look at there's a monk class as well, a death monk class in there as
Yes,
well.
Way to Long
And
Death.
yeah, and when you look at Way of the Long Death, when you look at the Undying, which both appeared in that book, it's very clear when you look at that, and then you look at something like Xanathar's, and then just especially if you look at something like Tasha's, it's so clear how conservative they were being with the power of subclasses. They really didn't want to overstep the mark to the point where both of these subclasses, the Undying and the Long Death. Now, Long Death is fine. It's actually okay.
Yeah.
It's an okay subclass, but it's not in terms of like ability and raw power and stuff like that. Pretty much everything that followed with Xanathar's and Tasha's, and even some of the base classes in the Player's Handbook are just better, considerably so. I feel like they were being very, very cautious. I think they were they were very aware of power creep. They talked about. I've heard them talk about it on shows and podcasts before, where when they're designing new stuff, they never look at like when they were designing Tasha's, they never looked at any of the Xanathar's subclasses to compare, because what you do is you make something that's like the base subclass, and then you make something like Xanathar's, which might end up being like 1.1 times as powerful, but that's fine, no biggie.
Yeah.
But then if you're comparing the 1.1 to the next one in Tasha's, you might end up with a 1.3 or 1.4, and then all of a sudden that's considerably more powerful than the base subclasses. So they always go back to the base subclasses when they're trying to gauge power. And this one honestly feels like they were so conservative with some of the abilities that it's maybe even underpowered when compared to the base subclasses. This being the Undying specifically. The Undead one, pretty sick.
Undead, like I said, it's like I'm catching up on Critical Role at the moment, and like there's a thing that happens in a battle in I think episode 18, where like Laudin is in a bad way and in a bad position, and like she's like, okay, I'm gonna try this thing. I'm gonna try this thing. If this works, it's gonna stop me from dying. And she's like, roll. Crap, that didn't work. Okay, I'm gonna do this thing now. Oh, and because I have 1 hit point now, I can do Form of Dread, and that gives me a bunch of temporary hit points.
Yeah.
So
Between temp HP, and I think the other thing, you don't need to eat or breathe or drink as well. I think, do they have the one where when you're on 0 hit points, if you succeed, they're quite tanky, but they have a thing where like your resistance to necrotic damage. You've resistance to necrotic damage, but then when you go into your Form of Dread, you just gain immunity to necrotic damage.
Yeah, and as well then in Form of Dread, just to give details on exactly how ridiculous it is, you gain 1d10 plus your Warlock level temporary hit points. So like that scales to hell as well. And I say this as someone, because that's basically second wind. Like I don't get, like, Lug doesn't get the crazy second wind heal a lot because I've only got 4 levels in fighter. Frost, who is a sidekick with second wind and is currently level 14 also, he gets a big benefit from second wind. He gets 14 HP flat out the gate, which is more than most. What's like a base heal potion is 2d4 plus 2, so that's
so 10
max. Like, and even like that, like I think that's still a pretty good roll on like a greater healing potion, 14 hit points like.
44 44 16, and then 4 is like 20. So yeah, you're still in the upper range of what you'd get out of a greater healing potion.
So, and this is the exact same, where like, or even early levels, if you roll a 10, you're going to be feeling pretty good about that.
Martin,
yes.
now that we've revised all the subclasses that Warlock offers and all the various flavors you can have, what's your favorite Warlock subclass? I think I
wonder which one it could be. It's the grey. Oh no, it's the Hexblade. It's very clearly the Hexblade. The Hexblade is awesome. I built a Hexblade like a week ago. That I really, really like. It's basically a Devil May Cry build, and it's really fun. It's like really, really fun. I have 2 separate magic weapons, neither of which are actual magic weapons. Like, it's stupid. Because like with the cool thing, what I really like about the Hexblade, which I didn't realize until I actually built one, which I thought I really should have realized, because like I watched all the Critical Role campaign 2, and Ford was a Hexblade for most of it, which is where I learned just how goddamn cool Hexblades are, and then forgot, and then made a Hexblade and remembered. But like, because I wanted to do like, I wanted to play like, I wanted to make like a Gish character, because I just really like Gish characters. But I didn't want to do like sword and shield or anything like that, and I was kind of want to do slightly different. So I have Because of the Hex Warrior thing, where you can use your charisma instead of in place of strength or dexterity. So I have a long sword in one hand, with like a +9 to hit, and it does like 1d8 +4. And then I have a pistol in the other hand that is my packed weapon, because I checked with the person who I was checked with the person whose campaign I was making it for. I was like, do you know, considering the time that this campaign is set in, it says I could make like a heavy crossbow. Could that be like a pistol instead? And he was like, yep. And I was like,
yep, sure.
Sick, awesome. So I have a magic sword that can I have a sword that can bypass resistances because it's magical, and I have a pistol that can bypass resistances because it's magical. Neither of which are actual innately magical weapons, and both of which I can like the hex weapon can't be like summoned and may disappear. That's just the packed weapon.
Question for you, because I think you mentioned this. I actually can't remember. When it comes to summoning a magical weapon or something like that, like a bow or in your case a pistol, does it create ammo for itself when you summon it?
I'm not sure.
I'm curious because that could be really cool.
It's because to do that you need I think it's like a 9th level or 7th level invocation. It's the improved packed weapon invocation.
Yes, exactly.
I'm looking for it here. Yeah, because I have it here now. Improved packed weapon. It just says, in addition, the weapon gains +1 bonus attack damage rolls unless it's a magic weapon that already has these. Finally, the weapon you can conjure can be a short bow, long bow, light crossbow, or heavy crossbow. It doesn't actually specify.
Yeah, so I thought there was something like that where like it makes its own ammo.
I'd like to think it does.
I would, be interesting if your character's walking around buying bullets and you've no gun on you whatsoever until you just summon it out of nowhere.
That is really cool. It is an action to summon and dismiss it, but that's still really cool. Like,
oh no, absolutely, yeah. I like to imagine if you're going to go like full Hexblade, the gun is either made of shadows or made of like ghostly wisps of white that come together and form a translucent gun. You know, that'd be really fucking cool. Martin, I have a question for you as well.
Yeah,
it's an interesting design choice, I feel, where and maybe I guess it's intentional. But I wonder what maybe the thought process behind it is. When you compare the Warlock with someone else who has a patron, so to speak, someone above them, a higher power that they answer to. Why do you think, or do you think, that Warlocks should maybe have a list of rules not dissimilar from a Paladin that they need to follow?
Ooh, I think that's a really good question, actually. If I had to guess the reason behind that it not being there, with Paladins and with I haven't actually played a cleric, so I can't remember off the top of my head if cleric get the same list of, because I know with the paladin notes, you when you look into the subsection that gives you the subclass, I still remember the vengeance ones really clearly. It was like fight the greater evil, make restitution, and I say that now and I can't remember the third one. It was like fight the greater evil.
It's like seek vengeance for those who cannot seek it themselves, or something like that, isn't it?
That's I think. Because I remember there was one, and the example, one of the tenets of it, and the example was if an entire village has sinned against the god, expunge the village, or something it was basically if you need to kill a village, kill the village. It was one of the tenets.
You go full hot fuzz on it.
Yeah, but it was anyway, the reason I think that paladins, and maybe I'm not sure if clerics have it as well, but the reason you would get that would be because generally speaking, with that kind of relationship, you are working in tandem. With a cleric and their god, or a paladin and their god, there is someone who worships and is subservient to that entity, and they have a positive relationship with that entity. I think the reason they don't give that with a warlock is to give you the opportunity to play an antagonistic warlock patron relationship. Yeah,
I suppose maybe. Yeah, I guess particularly when you look at the 3 original ones they gave in the Player's Handbook, where it's Archfey, which is neutral to maybe good, and then great old one who's unknowable and cannot be understood and stuff, and then Fiend, which is obviously usually very evil. It's very if you give hard rules that you have to follow for each of these guys, then that makes it very difficult to play like a Fiend in most parties, because then it's I have these rules where it says murder the innocent, so I guess I'm obliged to do that. Whereas with Paladin, most of them, The rules are kind of written in such a way that like you're not really they're almost like to quote Pirates of the Caribbean, they're more like guidelines.
That's actually I was gonna say. I think a similar system could work with Warlock, but frame it as guidelines rather than like things. You know, like if you're going like. You know, like if you're going to play a pact, if you're going to play a pact of the, if you're going to make a pact of the fiend, like it's like you could have like a table with like general themes of a fiend pact, general themes of an old one pact, general themes of a cleric, like, and that way you can have a thing there where like you can pick from it. It's almost like the way they do the randomly rolled tables. I think you could do a similar kind of thing, not randomly roll it, but just have a table of like things you may want to consider if you're playing a fiend pact or an old one pact. So typical like kind of themes and stuff like that. That way you can, if you're a new player, you can kind of use that as a reference to understand what you're getting into better and what that will build into if you pick that. And I think as well for like you could also do for a new player, but also could work for more seasoned players playing Warlock for the first time, where rather than necessarily picking those exact things, you could use them as like a springboard for an idea or something like that, where like you can be like, oh, I could do this, that's a really cool idea, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to change this thing, where like maybe it says like, oh, for a fiend pact, it's like some fiends trade in souls. Your some fiend pacts may require the user to set to like trade in souls. Like Ghost Rider is a fiend pact Warlock.
Oh yeah.
Hilariously though, not packed with a chain.
You beat me to it. I was just gonna say it.
I was
literally gonna say that exact thing.
He would definitely be a blade lock, and his packed weapon is the chain, which is it's a Hellfire motorbike chain. It's so sick. Yeah. There's actually other Ghost Riders. One of them has a big scythe. Like it's really cool. It's really sorry, I love Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you have a good point there. I like the idea that. Like you said, more like guidelines, but maybe what you said where you have a table of ideas and they're not necessarily strict rules, but maybe they kind of work more like you get an additional personality trait or bond or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you'd have a bond of your patron anyway, but when you're building your character, if you go to make a Warlock, maybe now you choose an additional thing based on the subset of Warlock you chose.
It would be cool to get like a character flaw based on the pact you choose. It's like the corruption of the pact magic in you. So like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you mentioned there about souls and stuff like that. What if you had just a relatively harmless ability, right? But something where your patron gives you a single iron soul coin at a time that is vacant, it's empty, and then he's like, "Hey, whenever you next kill somebody, just tap that off their forehead of their body when they're dead, and then I'll get that soul." And as soon as you tap it, it maybe rings out like a bell, and then it just disappears into smoke, and then your other hand a fresh one appears. And he just wants you to keep giving him this, and like that may not seem like a very impactful thing, but from a roleplay perspective, maybe your character really doesn't want to be sending souls to damnation repeatedly over and over
You're
again.
basically talking about Percy's arc in Critical Role Campaign 1 there.
Yeah, sort of actually.
The Briarwood arc, like with like that's a Warlock pact without being a Warlock pact, like.
I've always loved. I never. When I was watching it originally, that show, I never got that he had taken the Magic Initiate feat to get Hex, a single use of Hex.
Yeah.
I know because I didn't understand the game enough at the time to know that that's how he did it or why he had only one spell. So like he's using guns. I don't know why he has that one spell, but I'm like he totally picked it to just get a little bit of Warlock flavor in there without actually being a Warlock, and I love that. Very, very good.
Really good. And like, more so in the animated show, it very much plays much more like a Warlock pact, I think, because
way more. Yeah.
It's just the benefits of it being an animated show, really.
There's as another idea for like potential flaws or characteristics you could take on board with your character. If you're playing a Pact of the Fae or something like that, maybe your Fae is big into like trickery and pranks and jokes, and you could do a little bit of a jester on it. If you're bonded to this Fae, maybe your Fae is like at any point you can to like irritate or bug somebody or play a prank on somebody, please do. And they get a little kick every time you do it, and maybe they reward you a little bit by giving you a little buff or something if you decide that you're going to, I don't know, put something in someone's coffee that makes them like need to go to the bathroom very fast or something like that. But
I have one for you. If your player picks an Archfey, and you just make it all really small stuff for most of the time. Then when they hit like level 11, you're like, I want you to steal a baby and replace it with one of ours.
Oh, do like the proper mythos
Do a changeling.
stuff from do a
Yeah,
changelings. Yeah.
yeah, that would be a fun. That would be a really fun one to see how they deal with that. Because I think most people would be against stealing a baby. Although
Yeah.
I can also see some of my players if I was like, I want you to steal a baby, they'd be like, yeah, yeah, why not? Yeah, like that'll be hilarious. But yeah, no, that's really fun. I like it a lot. I think there's some. Oh, sorry. The thing I actually meant to say instead of the steal a baby thing. I remember when I was watching the WebDM thing.
Oh no, I said the loud part quiet that loud.
Oh no! But the WebDM, I remember watching the WebDM Warlock episode, and it was Pruitt. He was saying that he played a Warlock. I can't remember which patron he was, but he was saying he was a Minotaur Warlock, and his patron was some kind of a cow god. And anytime they were going through like a town or a village, he would just go up to the farmer and he'd be like, "Hey, I'm a Minotaur. I speak cow. If you want them to be more relaxed before you slaughter them, just say this to them. It's in cow. It'll get them to calm down." And it did get them to calm down. But what it was is it was a prayer to his patron. So he just went through every town. So every time they slaughtered the cow, it did make the cow calm down. But it's because when they slaughtered it, its fucking soul went off to the cow god. Like,
That's actually really fun. And then without even realizing, you have a whole bunch of farmers that are praying to this cow god every single time they kill one of their cattle. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was. I was just like, that's so clever. I love it.
I have one more question for you, Martin.
Yes.
And we'll probably finish on this one. What happens when a player disobeys their patron?
Oh, I suppose it depends on how often they disobey their patron and the severity of it. Like, if the patron is like, do this thing, or like, kill, like maybe the patron's like, I want you to steal
A baby.
Yeah, no, maybe not a baby, but like maybe like I want you to steal
two babies. Sorry.
I want you to steal this ring from this specific person, and it's like their wedding, and you're like, oh no, I don't really want to do that. And you don't do it. The first time you might just get a little taste, like your powers might zap out or start freaking out a little, but they'll come back, and then you'll get a visit from your patron going, that was a warning. If you disobey me again, those powers are gone for good. Which again, it's goddamn Critical Role. So many good examples. Ford probably is the greatest scene I've ever seen of that play out, where he did not want. I nearly said Atenua. It was Ukatoa. Yeah, Ford's patron Ukatoa was like this enormous like sea snake beast that's chained to the floor of the ocean, and he was going around finding these orbs, and if you put the orbs in, it would give him certain powers, but it would also unlock one of the restraints on Ukatoa. And eventually he twigged that this was going on, and massive spoilers for like midway through campaign 2, by the way, absolutely massive. Which I probably should have said before this, but at one point Ford's powers full on disappear because he doesn't want to serve Ukatoa anymore because he's realized he's evil. And Ford pulls probably the ballsiest move I've ever seen a Warlock pull in my entire life, where they're in this forge place, and they're like having this like sword handle they found reforged into a new thing. And Ford has his own sword, the Sword of Fathoms, which is his hex weapon and his pact weapon. And he literally like walks over the burning like molten metal of the forge and holds.
I think was it not a river of magma?
That was it. Sorry, it was a river of magma, and Ford like
because they were like in a volcano or something like that.
Yeah, Ford holds the sword out over the magma and is like, "Give me back my powers. You need me more than I need you." And this is how they have this whole standoff, and it even goes to the point where like he like impales himself with the sword and starts pushing it into his chest further and further.
He's like, I will kill myself before I continue to serve you.
Yeah, and he literally played chicken with a demigod, and it blinked. Like it was. Yeah. Oh, and like if you have watched it, go back and watch it. If you haven't watched it and you don't mind spoilers, look that up. Because dear God, Travis Willingham played it so well. Like, oh my, like if I was a DM and someone did that to me, I would legitimately be like, holy shit, like wow, you pulled out the big guns there. Let's go with this. This is awesome. Like,
I think Ford is probably one of my favorite characters from the last campaign. I think he was really, really good. Something that I think is interesting though about that, and I was thinking about this. Actually, this question kind of spurred my entire idea of let's talk about Warlocks. Because I was thinking about this. Because here's the thing, right? Depending on the patron you have, you need to be kind of careful with this, I think. Because in Travis's case, he made the choice He kind of knew what he was doing, and he's like, I don't want to keep following this creature. I don't want to break this creature out of like its underwater tomb or whatever it is, because I feel like that would be very very bad for people.
Yes.
So he made the conscious choice to be willing to destroy his sword and therefore his pact and lose his pact magic.
And he had no
Which
magic,
is
like he had no magic powers, or like they had to give that. I remember
he had multiple sessions where and the thing is, here's the thing about Ford as well. Charisma was his only good stat.
Yeah.
Which meant that, and like that was fine when he was able to use it as a hexblade for his weapon, and when he was able to cast spells and stuff. But all of a sudden, he has very little dex, virtually no strength, and like he can't use any weapons.
Fragile as hell as well.
Yeah, he was very very squishy as well. So he had like I think maybe 3 or 4 sessions. I can't remember how long it was exactly, but he had a few sessions in a row where the rest of the party are like, "Hey, I have this magic dagger, take this, and also here's a whip, I guess."
Yeah.
But they were just trying to give him something he could use, and it wasn't very effective. He was very very ineffective for multiple sessions. But again, Travis made that choice.
Yes.
And I think it's worth mentioning that although patrons can be malevolent and cruel and demanding in what they want, that you're conscious that your players are still there to have fun. So, if a player decides they're going to keep disobeying and stuff like that, you can maybe decide that in the middle of a fight, they go to make an Eldritch Blast attack against someone, and you just say, you go to fire, and it just stops. And maybe you don't take away their magic entirely, but you can start out little bit by little and be like, oh, one of the attacks just didn't happen.
Do you know what would be the cruelest thing to do? You wait until they cast shield.
Say again?
You wait until they cast shield.
And so that she still hits you.
They go shield, and nothing happens.
Nothing happens. Yeah. See, like again, I think little things like that, just to kind of like, and maybe you could preface it as well by being like, oh, you hear a voice, a low growl in the back of your head, kind of, this entity is angry with you, kind of thing.
You just hear a voice say,
but yeah,
fend for yourself this time, and shield fails.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and again, that could be really really cool. There'd want to be a certain level of trust there with playing between player and DM. I've come across so many things online where I'm like, every now and again I'll come across something and a person will be like, my DM did this to me and it was the worst and I hated the game and stuff like that. And I'm like, I could totally see myself doing that to Martin and we'd have a great laugh.
You did it to me. I couldn't take Paladin levels for a while. That's why I took 3 Warlock levels.
That's true. Yeah. But again, that's because we have a good rapport. We trust each other at the table, and I think that's so important. And
that was dope. That was awesome, and I like. Is actually sorry. Go on. You say what you were going to say first, and then I have a good follow up, which is another thing for Warlock.
Yeah. No. It's just it's occurred to me in the past like 2 or 3 years, probably about the last 2 years mostly, how many people are playing games of D&D where there is little to no trust between them and their DM.
Yeah.
To the point where everything seems like a slight. Everything seems like that kind of confrontational player versus DM mentality. Players are trying to win. DMs are trying to stop you from winning. Everything's very antagonistic. And every time I see something like that, I consider myself so lucky how in our table, anyone that's at our table currently, if I did something like that to them, if they were playing a Warlock and I said, your magic's just gone, they trust me enough to know I'm not doing this to mess with them. I'm not doing this to ruin their day. That I'm doing this for like a interesting story beat or for dramatics, and that eventually they know that eventually we will find a way to work this out. Yeah. If I turned around to Dan, who plays our Warlock in our current game, and I said, all your magic just stops, and I said that to him tomorrow.
Didn't you do that to him already, actually?
I think I took away...
When the book tore itself apart?
I did, but he did that. Yeah. His book, his tome, did that.
Yeah.
But then he was able to create his own one that specifically wasn't given to him by his patron.
Yeah, I just remember the book getting torn apart and him being like, "What?"
Yeah. Again, though, because I'm not trying to.
Oh no, yeah.
I wasn't trying to punish him. I wasn't trying to like take away his fun or anything like that. I did it, one, because I knew that with like an hour-long ritual he can get another one back, and 2, because I thought it'd be an exceptionally dramatic moment, and it was. So that all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, anytime you've done that, or like when I couldn't take Paladin levels, or like when Dan's book tore itself apart, that's all like just like it's like that's the crescendo of the story. That's the height. That's the point. That's the impetus for the next section of story.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the end of Act Two. It's the lowest point. It's the abyss, the darkest part of the cave. You know, it's a part of the thing. Again, we have that though. So I would encourage anyone out there who is running either as a player who is playing a warlock, or a DM who is running for a warlock. Try to have a good rapport with that player. Try to be open as people, as humans at the table about what you're trying to do for each other in terms of running the game, providing a story, and playing a character, while also, you know, when you're in the game and in character, your fiend packed warlock is also being a complete asshole to you. That doesn't. The DM shouldn't be trying to be an asshole to that player, though.
No.
The fiend who is like who has you bound in chains and has your soul owed to him for all of eternity. He's an asshole. Your DM should not be an asshole, and likewise with your player as well. So, I think it's just worth noting to not allow there to be overlap there. You know, sometimes patrons are malicious, sometimes they're cruel, sometimes they're greedy and selfish and demanding.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, if you pick the Fiend patron, you know what you're in for, and if you don't, read the name of your patron again, and then go to the dictionary and read the term.
Oh,
Fiend.
I misread that. I thought it said
friend. I knew you were going to do it. I knew you were going to do it. Yes, but that's what I was going to say before before we kind of cut across each other. Was that like when
my friend being so mean to me?
No, but like when it came time because like I remember when we did the thing with Eru where I couldn't take paladin levels anymore. But that was at the end of a session, and we had a chat about it, and you explained it to me, and I was like, this is mental. I'm cool with it, but it's mental. I'm like, geez, what can I do? And I looked at my stats, and I was like, I remember I was like either going to go for 3 levels of fighter, or I was going to go for 3 levels of, and I know fighter was my first choice. So I was going to go fighter. For
you think you went a level or 2 into fighter for a while, just to kind of.
I went a level or 2 into fighter, and then I went, no wait, can I do warlock instead? And we're like, yeah, absolutely, you can take those fighter levels back, and we went straight into warlock, and like, but the thing that I did was I went and I looked up the Faerunian like Fae pantheon, for lack of a better word, and I looked for the Fae that would match what my character was about, because I know Fae, like we were saying earlier, Fae, you could be neutral, you could go full evil with it, you can go good with it. Like that's the great thing about the Fae, is it spans that massive spectrum. So I went looking and I found Chevrash the Night Hunter, and it was like a Fae specifically themed around vengeance and revenge and hunting down one's enemies, and like he was all about the hunt and the hunting thing. And I was like, oh, perfect for a vengeance paladin. And I was an elf vengeance paladin as well, and in more even so, I was an Eladrin vengeance paladin. So the Fae
connection.
So I went, let's dive straight into the Fae stuff, like, and like we got to do a whole thing where it was like my character was like, well, I didn't grow up with elves, like I'm an Eladrin, but like my whole village was killed and I escaped, and like so I didn't grow up with elves, I grew up in a paladin order, so it's about time for me to start acting like an elf, I guess. And I went off, and like it took a while as well. We did I think like 3-4 sessions before like I actually made contact with my patron, and it was like continually I would be like meditating and making checks and stuff, so I felt like it absolutely felt earned as well, which I really enjoyed.
It was a few sessions for definite, because you guys went to the Fae and you did a few sessions in the Fae where you had to prove yourself worthy to that Fae archfey as well, in what was a very dramatic one-on-one fight between you and a former player's character who is now an NPC in the game.
I still think that's the cleverest thing I've ever done in D&D as a player, is does a pact weapon count as consecrated for the purposes of divine sense?
Because it would be kind of consecrated by that person, so you could detect him inside of his magical darkness, and you knew where to hit. And again, I think you weren't very low health.
I was
screwed.
We were to the point where I was crouched down on the ground, so ranged attacks had disadvantage, hiding behind my giant door shield.
Yeah, because the person you were fighting was a part rogue, part arch Fae Warlock, and I think they had darkness that they could cast.
They did, yeah.
And also he had the infernal vision, is it called, or
Devil Sight?
Devil Sight, which one of the invocations, which we didn't talk about much today, but maybe we can talk about it different.
I actually specifically took it later on because I got screwed by darkness again in a fight with a Marilith, and I was like, that Devil Sight thing he had back in the day was really useful.
Yeah, it's a great one. It's a great one. It's great to do and just drop darkness on yourself and then just be shooting out of it. But anyway, but Martin.
Yes, Connor.
That is all the time we have for today.
Oh man, I love Warlocks. I actually I never think I love Warlocks, and then I start talking and think about Warlocks, and I'm like, I love Warlocks, man. They're so goddamn cool.
I really like Warlocks a lot. I have a cool idea for like there's a character in Dragon Age. He's in the DLC of Dragon Age 1. His name is Anders, and he's in Dragon Age 2 as a full character, party character. And he has the spirit of like a justice spirit because there's a spirit realm in Dragon Age, and he is a justice spirit, and it is bound to his body, so that both of them occupy it. But every now and again, the justice spirit will go just a little bit far and stuff like that.
Okay.
And I had a cool idea for like someone who is a good person, but they're like maybe a little bit on the kind of like roguish thing, a bit of a Han Solo-ish kind of character. But they get bound to this spirit who was like, no, we will seek justice no matter where it goes. But like that they every now and again just cross the line just a little smidge into vengeance and being a little bit too cruel with their justice and too black and white with it. I thought it could be a fun character to play. And then I would absolutely multi-class with Divine Soul Sorcerer.
Yeah.
For all those cleric spells. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions you'd like us to ask, stories you'd like us to share, or topics you would like us to cover, please tweet us at MicFlayersPod on Twitter. You can see that on the lower screen. You can also find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Breaker, and Radio Republic. Martin, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over. Also, usually on the aforementioned Micflayers podcast Twitter account at MicFlayersPod. But that is mostly about it for me. Connor, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. And like I said, as always, every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time here on the Micflayers podcast and all of the aforementioned platforms. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are more enthused to potentially play Warlocks in any of your future games after hearing some of these stories and these chit chats. Join us again next week. We'll be continuing with the podcast. Until then, thank you so much and have a good day.
Hail
Bye
Satan.
now.